Hello everyone, we're going to be ranking all of the subs and then all of the specials immediately after in 5.3. This is part 1 of 3 of the tier list that we're going to be doing. Part 2 is going to be covering the main weapons, and so will part 3 covering the high and top tiers of that. So I hope you guys are looking forward to this. I did this in 5.3, but that was before K52 existed, so unfortunately things have to change. So without further ado, I guess let's just get ranking, and we're gonna start with the worst of the subs, which is not really changed, which is going to be Sprinkler and Point Sensor. Now, I'm aware that these subs have some level of use. Yes, Sprinkler paints a little bit, it has some amount of HP, and Sensor locates people. But if you're gonna compare that with every other sub in the game, it just gets hard outclassed. We can start with Sensor. There are so many other sub weapons that locate people. Mine has the same tracking effect. Mist can basically tell you where people are inside the mist. Granted, that's not that good. And then you have stuff like Auto Bomb and Torpedo, which locates and does something else. I don't know why Sensor is in the game if they're gonna make like 5... Oh yeah, Beacon locates people on the map if it's near it too. I don't know why they have Sensor in the game, honestly. If there's so many indirect location things, or like this sub weapon does this plus some form of location, what's the point of having a sub that's entirely based on it? It's okay in solo, but in competitive it's not good. So, it's just not that great. Sprinkler. I don't really care about the sub. It barely paints. It's cheap. It can maybe tank a little bit. It's not completely useless. Neither is Sensor, but it's not good. Like, there's just better options everywhere. Realistically, if you want paint, just run a suction bomb, and it'll paint more than the Sprinkler. Bombs will generally, over the course of a match, paint more and put out more pressure, so there's just not much point to having that sub-weapon, honestly. Again, the minor shielding potential is all you have, but then Wall just does it better. Alright, and moving up a little bit is Toxic Mist. This sub is still trash, but I think people do forget one thing that VJet has reminded people, which is that it's not trash on ranged weapons. Now, short-range weapons are very reliant on having a bomb, because it's how they poke and affect the game when they don't have map control, which is a lot. And that means having Toxic Mist, which does not paint or really do anything, is kind of worthless. So, when you put it on a weapon like VJet, which can paint fine because it has so much goddamn range, so it can sit on snipe and it can paint and get its missile fine. It doesn't have to worry about a lack of painting range, and so having something like Toxic Mist is actually okay on it, because it doesn't really matter that much. It can still affect the game. So Toxic Mist on ranged weapons is okay. That being said, bombs will put out more pressure and they'll put out more paint. It's still not a lethal sub-weapon. It still barely affects people. You swim 2 centimeters and you're out of it. It really just matters on Rainmaker maps where you can prevent the Rainmaker from jumping a gap if Mist is on it. That's it. Realistically, it's okay on VJet, but VJet would still be better if it had a bomb. Alright, and that brings us to some actual good utility tier, with Beacon, Curling, and Mine. Now, I would state that this list is all modes, not zones only. If it was zones only, Mine would probably be moved up, because one of its main utility is stalling out zone caps by having paint and damage on the most important area of the game. Mine on tower is okay, but it's really hard to get 2 of them on there. They don't do anything in Rainmaker. They're okay on Clam Blitz, like you can use it to get damage against Bubble Blower users, I guess. They're good for checking flanks. Like with a lot of these, they're great on range weapons, like they're great on Leader, they're great on Hydra. They're horrible on anything close range. They just suck on anything with short range for the same problems I mentioned with Toxic Mist. So, not really that great. Curling Bomb is a movement option. It's okay at that. You throw the curling and you swim. It's great for bamboo. It's not really great on anything else. If you're short range enough, then congratulations, you have no bomb and you have the problem that you have with any of the other subs. If you're long range, your weapon might not need mobility that much, so you have to be a ranged weapon that likes moving around, which is why it fits bamboo, and pretty much nothing else. Beacon is great on ranged weapons. This is Mine all over again, but it's better in all modes than on zones. It kind of works in any map. Again, if it's on a short range weapon, you're kind of screwed. But if it's on something like Ballpoint or Tent, it's great because Tent just uses its shield, and Ballpoint has range to actually affect the game. So it works on those weapons. Again, for all of these, and I'm going to repeat this more when I talk about bombs, which is bombs just are better. They're still going to do more. And that brings us to actual bombs and wall, which wall is okay. I mean, wall is really good for 52, and I think that kind of boosted a lot of people's opinion on it. Like, yes, wall is good on 52, because 52's paint range dwarfs that of other short-range shooters. Go in the testing room, shoot with Splash, shoot with T-Tech, and shoot with 52. Even after the nerf, the 52 is going to go farther. So 52 does not have the same problem as other short-range shooters because it actually has painting range, so it can deal with that fine. And additionally, wall is more helpful than these because you can throw wall and then paint behind your wall, which is 52's entire game plan. You throw a wall, you paint, you get booyah, you throw a wall, you repeat the process. 52 is not really a Slayer, but we'll get to that later. It just has killing power as part of you can't run at me lol. Regardless, it still does lose to Fizzy, Splat, Suction Bomb. It really just depends. We've seen more shooters because shooters can actually shred wall. If you're a certain weapon class, like a blaster, you just cannot affect wall. Wall is a terribly designed sub-weapon because of that. Like, some weapons can't do anything to it. So, I hate the sub. It's an A tier. Autobomb and Torpedo are kind of the same thing in terms of their utility. They're a location sub that forces someone to take action, immediately making them better at point sensor. They're both cheap, so cool. Autobomb's a bit better in terms of being a lethal explosion, but it doesn't really have as much pain or hitbox output, and it has more whiting frames than Torp. Still fine, but you have to be careful if you have an ink-hungry weapon because of the whiting frames, even though it's 55% of your ink tank. Torpedo is the best sub-weapon design-wise in the game. It's super cool because it's not one sub-weapon. It's two sub-weapons. That's what makes Torpedo so cool. Throwing Torpedo and Rolling Torpedo do completely different things. Thrown Torpedo is made to lock onto someone, give away their location, move towards them, which can be shot down, and if it doesn't, then it paints a lot. If it gets shot down, it does nothing. Meanwhile, if you roll or bounce Torpedo off a wall, it is a mini burst bomb with a bigger hitbox and more damage, but you only get one of them. It is two subs. Please make more things like this. Like, side note as to how good it is, which, by the way, this is basically perfectly well balanced. It's a great balanced sub-weapon. Please make more stuff like this that has utility. This is how you make a non-lethal bomb. Right here. This is something that's actually useful. So, it kind of depends. That being said, we are in a shooter meta, and because of that, shooters can easily shoot down Torpedo, and therefore it's not as good right now. If the meta were slower weapons, this would be higher. Same for auto, actually. But because we're in quad shooter meta, yeah, Torpedo's less good. We got Burst Bomb, Splat Bomb, and Suction Bomb. I feel like I shouldn't need to talk about these that much. I will say that, while the tiers are not ordered, this basically is in order. This is the order of those sub-weapons. Burst Bomb is great for tick damage. It works well with weapons that push in with it. Because we're in quad shooter meta and there's stuff like Neo Splash, you will have things that can play off of Burst Bombs. It's really good. Burst Bomb is something you really have to have a team to know how great it is with it. Splat Bomb is basically your quick lethal explosion. It has solid paint. Its main thing is its fast explosion time, especially with how it works from detonating when it rolls off of a surface. So, it works really well. It's great for pressure when you do and don't have map control. Suction Bomb, slower explosion time, but you have better damage, you have a better radius, and you have better paint. That's what makes it so good. This thing is your answer to wall because it crushes it. It crushes Barella Shield, it's great. That's part of why Zap is so good, because LDE Suction Bomb is great. These sub-weapons are also boosted because of aforementioned LDE. The main thing about Suction Bomb is that it's ink-hungry, but you can forget about anything ink-hungry when Last Ditch Effort is in the game, because when Last Ditch Effort activates, Zap can throw Suction and paint forever. When it doesn't, Zap actually has to be careful when it throws Suction. So that's why it's there. And now, we have Fizzy Bomb. And like Ollie mentioned earlier, I have said Torpedo is 2 sub-weapons, Fizzy Bomb is 3. Fizzy Bomb is a movement option, it is a burst of tick damage option, and it is a lethal bomb in the same sub-weapon. Now, Thrown Fizzy does not work as well as it does with Curling Bomb. It is a thinner trail, it does not go as far. It is still able to be used. If you shake it, the trail gets thicker. Fizzy Bomb has an absurd amount of DPS. It is crazy how much damage a full charge Fizzy actually does. Fizzy uses less of your ink tank than the lethal bombs. Fizzy Bomb has 3 explosions, 2 of which can kill with center hits, unless if you run 0.1 bomb defense. But 3 outside hits will reliably break armor even with a sub-bomb defense, something that Suction and Splat Bomb can't actually do, and it's great damage output. The bomb goes further throw range-wise than these other subs, just like Torpedo. And the main thing, you can get double Fizzy just by running LDE. And that's what makes this better. If double Fizzy could not be ran with LDE, it would go here. But because Last Ditch Effort exists, it's going up 1. Because double Fizzy is stupid. Double Fizzy puts so much pressure in terms of walling out an area because it is 6 mini explosions, plus a paint trail, plus better paint than any other sub-weapon, and then you just do it over and over. It is free stalling on an objective if it's something like zones. It's free walling out an area. You need to clear somewhere to approach for? Just spam double Fizzy on the area. You'll probably clear it. Now, fortunately, we are lucky, because currently, Fizzy Bomb is either on a trash main weapon, a kit that doesn't work for it because the weapon wants to run a completely type of gear, or Kensa Machine with Splashdown. There is no good main sub special combination with Fizzy in the game. I know this is going to hurt someone in chat, but this is the reality of it right now. So because of that, we haven't seen Fizzy's full potential in this game. And it's still the best sub-weapon. I know people are going to mention K-Gluga. Gluga is not a painter, it is not a support. It does nothing with Fizzy Bomb and armor. That's sub-weapons, and now let's move to specials. Okay, next up is special weapons, and I'm going to be very quick on the starting 2, which is Splashdown and Auto Rush directly in the bottom. Now, I am aware at lower skill brackets when you can't cancel Splashdown that it's not a bad special. That's cool and all. This is a competitive tier list. We are looking at top 500 solo queue a tiny bit and mostly about team play. Splashdown will die to any competent team. People do not use it for really anything other than maybe double bomb, maybe attempted panic button that fails 90% of the time. If you're lucky, maybe you'll cancel something like Bubbles. But if you really want something to cancel Bubbles, just use Booyah Bomb. Why use Splashdown? Outside of that is Auto Rush. It's okay for locating people. All the bombs will stack in one place, so it's definitely not painting. It's not that great. It's not worthless either. Next up, I have a few hot takes, but these are all good special weapons, in which we have Curling Launcher, Baller, and Inkstorm. Now, Curling Launcher is not like Curling Bombs. Curling Launcher is pre-patch, so the bombs are actually bigger. These special weapons in B tier are actually pretty underrated. B tier specials are not bad. These are okay specials. They are situational, but when you want to run them, they work. Curling Launcher is mostly good in zones for maps you want to paint the objective because the bounce plus explosion will outpaint any other launcher. And in Rainmaker, it's nice for popping shield with Silver Arrow Spray. That's about it. Baller is nice for survivability when it actually works. That being said, it gets shredded, so it's useless outside of that. Keeping you alive is still a useful tool, so it's not horrible. Booyah is a bit better, though. And Inkstorm. Honestly, Inkstorm with Object Shredder is actually pretty useful. I would consider moving that up to A tier. But most of the Inkstorm weapon you see right now is CDS, and even then we're seeing more VDS. There's not really any Storm weapons, so it's kind of hard to say. Honestly, it's okay at moving people out of an area, but we already have Booyah, Bomb Launcher, Tenna Missiles, and all of those are better in their own respective ways. So Inkstorm, especially with Object Shredder, is still functional, but it's not like, yeah, I really want Inkstorm. It's like, sure, we can run Storm. Next up is Stingray and Inkjet for A tier. Now, Stingray is here mostly because this is an all modes tier list, and it's great still in Rainmaker. It is fine in tower control, and it's still perfectly good in clams and zones, honestly. It's a good way to kill the power clam user if they're sitting in bubbles, and it's still nice in zones for forcing people to move. Ray is hard. Like, I'll be real, Ray is really hard right now. You have to actually be able to track people using the map and stuff. But again, we're looking at top level play. People are going to be able to do that. Same thing with Inkjet. You need to hit your shots with Pack. Pack is really good in Tower and Rainmaker, like with Stingray. If this was a zones only tier list, A and B tier would probably be swapped around, or at least be kind of meddled around, but because this is all modes and Stingray and Jet are great on Tower and Rainmaker, they get to be up higher. Next up is Burst Rush. This special is pretty underrated. That being said, it is partially carried by the fact that it has great synergy on Mach 2 and on Soda, the two weapons that have it. It's free tick damage at a distance. It really traps people. That's the main thing. If you get hit by Burst Rush and they don't miss, you just get stuck. Unless if you're a shooter, and even if you're a shooter, it's hard. You just get constantly painted over. You can't move. I wouldn't say it's as impactful as the specials in S and X, but it's still really good, especially for killing or pressuring people. Finally, we have Ultra Stamp. This special would be great if it worked and didn't just miss people it ran directly at. In particular, as we'll see above, 4 of the specials above this thing get hard countered by Stamp. And we'll get to those when we get to those. But Stamp is a genuine counter to all of those specials. However, because the special doesn't work properly, because it just does not actually protect you when it really should and doesn't kill people when it should, it's down here. Stamp benefits a lot from the current meta, and that's part of what makes it higher. It also doesn't see use in competitive because there's no real good Stamp kit besides Camo Tent, but that's a topic for main weapons video. Anyway, Suction Launcher is a stupid special. You can lob suctions higher so they blow up at the same time as ones you throw lower. So in many cases you can insta-cap. Splash players don't even abuse this, to be honest. Like, no one really does this, and it's broken, so people should really learn. It's great at walling out an area. It's incredibly high damage per second, popping Rainmaker Shield, clearing Tower. It's awesome. It just breaks everything. You're a little bit vulnerable, but throwing it, you already know Ink Armor and Antenna Missiles are above this, so guess what? You have protection when you're using Bomb Launcher. You're fine. I just realized I had Splat Bomb instead of Splat Bomb Launcher dragged up, but Splat Bomb Launcher is a bit better at killing, a bit worse at painting, and a bit worse at damage. I would say Suction Launcher is slightly better, but both of them are dumb. Booyah Bomb is nice right now because it can eat bombs, and it can eat Bubble Blower, which is above this, so it's good at countering current specials, which is why it's higher right now. Also because the spammability of Booyah Bomb with K52 is really useful, but that's more main weapons topic. Realistically, Booyah is a great counter to other specials. It's like what Splashdown wanted to be, but with way less of the risk. You know, it's an actual special that counters other specials, rather than being an ability that is supposed to counter other specials. So Booyah Bomb is great for that. It's okay at survivability, unless if you're being double teamed. And it also kind of like wall depends on the weapons that's fighting it. That being said, still pretty good. So let's talk about Ink Armor and Antenna Missiles. Both of these are global special weapons that either force people to move or take damage, or force your team to get HP to push back in with. They benefit heavily from coordination, so they are weaker in solo queue. That being said, they basically force people to move, to play the video game, so they're really good in that regard. There just isn't that much you can do about Armor and Missile. They will force you to move. You have to play around it. They're really, really great. They're just the global specials. It's Splatoon 2. This is how you move in. You use Antenna Missiles to displace people, you use Armor to protect your team, and you go forward. They're a staple. There's not much to say about them. And that leaves the stupidness that is Bubble Blower. Now, Bubble Blower, the way I've heard described the best by FLC, is that it's a special weapon that does not belong with Splatoon 2 specials. Which is completely right. The bomb combo is absolutely broken. Most weapons can't do anything about it. Stamp is the only actual counter to it, and Stamp is bad, so who cares? So, in this way, we kind of just have bubble combo that you can't stop. And okay, forget the bubble combo, because that's not the whole special. What if we just put bubbles out there? Yeah, alright, what do you want to do? Go walk up and shoot the bubbles? Oh, they're walking and shooting the bubbles. We're gonna shoot the bubbles. We do more damage to them. The bubbles pop, they die. Bubble Blower is 3 high HP shields your team does more damage to that at any point in time on a well-coordinated environment can turn into a giant nuclear bomb. Do I need to say anything else? Luckily, Missiles and Booyah are actual decent options against it sometimes and can keep bubbles from sitting up there, which is a real threat. It's not just the bomb combo, it's the fact that bubbles, a shield, can become a giant explosion. That's the actual problem with it. That being said, not every weapon has a bomb, and it is somewhat dependent on your comp having actual damage per second weapons that can pop bubbles. Not super needed, but it helps. So, at the end of the day, with how important global specials are to the game, I will rate Bubble Blower as a whole on everything on X tier. So there you go. That's the specials tier list. Bubbles is stupid, get it out of the video game. See you all later.